Your inner world has an agenda, just like every person that you meet, and its agenda is to help you along your path. There's a lot of resources invested in creating your personality, and keeping you alive. So
Mhm.
just imagine all those resources are invested in your success. So your level of access depends on your level of frequency at what you have access to. So basically, think of cable television. It
Mhm.
has so many channels, right?
Right.
But if you don't have a remote, you can just put it on, it's on one channel and you don't have access to it. You have one of those new TVs that you can't even change the channel on. You have one frequency, and that's generally what we do. That's our soul's frequency when we're born. We're tuned into one frequency.
Welcome to the Reality Revolution. Today I have Happy Ali, the writer of the amazing book, The Intuition Bible. Happy and I have a lot in common. He's got a degree in psychology. He's a prophetic dreamer, certified master NLP practitioner, certified master clinical hypnotherapist, host of the Happy Insight podcast. And this book that he's written in uh, the Intuition Bible is amazing and really goes in depth on how to use the intuition. So I had to talk to him. Welcome to the Reality Revolution, Happy.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Brian. I'm really excited because we do have a lot in common. And I am really curious what you thought about the book or my angle on the book, and also just diving into the world of inner wisdom, because the book is called The Intuition Bible, but it was originally called Unleash Your Inner Wisdom.
Mhm.
And then, of course, a title pops into your head and you do that. But I think the word intuition is a lot more limiting than the idea of unleashing your inner wisdom. So hopefully we'll get into that a little bit.
Well, writing a book's a big thing. When you decide to go with it, it's obviously something that really inspired you. So tell me the reason that you wanted to write this book.
So I want to take credit for it, but I was writing my second book called Heart Lens, and it was all about tapping into the perspective of the heart. And there's a lot of literature on it. There's a research um, community behind the heart mind connection and all that stuff. And
Mhm.
I remember going to bed one night asking the universe, I said, "Hey, can you help me?" I was almost done with that book. I said, "Can you use me to the best of my abilities, something that I know very well, and something that humanity needs to hear right now." And I went to sleep one night and I woke up the next day with 15 chapters of the Intuition Bible already pre-downloaded into my head.
Wow.
And I thought, well, I guess this is the path that my soul or inner being has in store for me. So I just put my fingers on the typewriter and just let it all pour out. And it ended up being 29 chapters. And it could have been way more, but my publishers were having a shit fit basically, because it was supposed to be 50,000 words and it ended up being 80,000. Well, it was 90 and then they chopped it down to 80. They like it shorter. People like it shorter, but I did want it to be like a book that the newbies could find very interesting, but also the experts could find stuff in there, nuggets that they could find. And also one that if you never did any of the exercises, because it is exercise heavy, that it would be a book full of knowledge that would help you with your life. So that's kind of how it all came about.
Yeah, that's the great thing about the book. It's not just talking about intuition. You give practical exercises so that you can access that inner wisdom, which is great. And I love a meaty book. I'm not one of those that likes a smaller book. And when it's a meatier book and it's got more chapters, there's a lot more to really soak in. And so, give us a little bit of idea about your background and how you came to this teaching about intuition and definitely spirituality. How you came to this.
So I was raised in a family of prophetic dreamers. So they would dream something and it would happen, but no one really called themselves prophetic dreamers. We were just braggers about having dreams that come true. And we would just tell each other, "Oh, look, I had that dream." But it was more in hindsight, you're like, "Oh, I had that dream 2 weeks ago
Yeah.
or 2 months ago." So it wasn't really anything anyone had fine-tuned. And my dad has an intense sixth sense is what he called it. So my mom's side was the intuitive dreamers and then my dad's side or my dad was the insane sixth sense guy. But I never really thought about it. All I know is that it was nurtured in my belief system that you can see the future in dreams and you can have an intense amount of Sixth Sense, which ruins every movie because the second the beginning starts, you know the ending. And I just never thought twice about it, but it infused it in my belief system. And I talk about it a lot in my teachings that your belief system's what allows this information to come through because everybody's intuitive. Everyone has all sorts of intuitive abilities and everyone has prophetic dreams. It's just a matter of whether the subconscious brings it to your awareness and attention or not. So I already had that built into my upbringing. And one day, in the 90s, I decided I wanted to find Madonna's house because I was a fanatic gay Madonna fan at the time. And I didn't know the address because you couldn't look it up. I had a photo that I saw in a magazine. And I decided to take my mom's car for a ride into the Hollywood Hills, which is these windy roads that have
Yeah.
there's no logic to how I'm sure there is logic, but to someone trying to find it, there's a lot of dead ends and such. And I decided I was just gonna go to each stop sign and decide if I should make a right, left, or go forward. And without making a single U-turn, shortly thereafter, I found myself in front of that house. And
Wow.
that woke up something within me that said, okay, there's something more to just tapping into your inner wisdom. There's something within you because I didn't have a map. And it wasn't like today, it was the 90s. And that was kind of I think, the light bulb moment that opened up for me that said, hey, there's more. Because there's no way I could have found that house.
For
And
the people listening, back in the 90s, we didn't have our phones to go anywhere. And, I remember having to print stuff out. You remember we'd print out the
yeah, and
direction.
if you had the address, and this is prior to printing, because
Right.
the home computer didn't really become something more available until 98 or 97. And then that was when AOL came out. And this is early 93 or
Right.
something. So it was just, so that was the beginning. And then in 95, I had a self-induced near-death experience that I went to sleep one person. I won't get into much detail on how it happened, but my body didn't quite die, but I thought I was going to die. And I went to sleep with one perspective about life. And I woke up with enough information downloaded into my brain that it took me 2 years to get it all out on paper. And it changed my entire outlook on life, let me see life through so many different perspectives. I learned about energy, reincarnation, the eternity of the soul, how to be happy, how to change your perspective on things. And that's where my name comes from, because everyone thought I was imagining it or going crazy.
Hmm.
And a moment like that really did shift my awareness of how much information can come from within. And it came from a moment of releasing all attachment to this world. And it flooded my brain. And literally, it took me 2 years to get it all out. And at the time, the information was novel. Now it's basically yesterday's news because we receive in real time, and this was, 30 years ago almost. And it's so different now. How it's amazing as big teachers were coming out with the same concepts of what I was writing, I realized how valid it was,
Hmm.
because it wasn't just something. At first you could think you just made that stuff up, and then I realized that there's a world of inner knowledge. Then once I became a teacher of it, I studied psychology because I studied a lot of different belief systems. Eventually, I thought I know the spiritual world inside and out. Now it's time to learn psychology so I can balance it out. And then wanted to learn NLP and all that stuff. And then I realized, as I realized how much as information gets downloaded to us and how much our brains delete, I realized when you can teach people how to change the way they believe about what they believe about themselves in life and how many new superpowers come online, how many of their abilities that they never thought they'd have come online. And that's how it all became kind of happened. And that's where I got my expertise from. I have, since I have, I guess, now almost 29 years of experience when it comes to this stuff. And it sounds like a really long time because I
Wow.
like to think that I'm not even that old, but I am.
You mentioned prophetic dreaming as one of your gifts, and you talk about it in the book. Tell us about the dream that you had in 2008 that changed your life.
Well, I was a 30-year-old, or I don't know if I was 30 yet, but I was around that time. And I was a gay guy living his life, partying, having a good time. And the idea of having children was not even on my radar, but I had a dream one night and it was very clear. And there was a narrator that said, "You're having a boy or you're having a child." And I said, "Well, there's no way I'm having a child." And I was arguing back with this voice, and they said, "No, you're having a boy." Um, or a child. And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden they showed me one of my best friends who was a lesbian who was already married, and she had a daughter who was my goddaughter, and she was 9 months pregnant and about to go into labor. And I said, "Hey, there's, I guess you're having my baby and we got to go to the hospital." And her wife came around from behind her and said, "No, Happy, I got this," sat her down, trying to reached in, grabbed the baby and handed my son and said, "This is your son, Cyrus." And I held this baby for the first time, and I've never held a baby that was my own before. I'd never done
Yeah.
that. So when I did that, it felt like the most real experience of my life. And I woke up and I was still crying when I was, my face was wet when I was awake because I was crying from happiness. And I called my best friend Trisha, the next morning and said, "Hey, we had a baby. It's a boy." She said, "Well, we're not planning on doing that. And we definitely don't want you as the dad." And 6 months later, they came to me. They said, "We've been thinking about it. We want you to donate." I said, "Oh, I can be the dad. And I also want to be the dad of my goddaughter, which is their daughter, but only if we try it at home, turkey baster style. No doctors involved.
Right.
We're not, we're not going to tempt fate. Like if it's meant to be, it will be. If the dream was for real, it's going to happen on its own."
Right.
And sure enough, a year and a half later, we had our son Sky, and I adopted their daughter as well. So then we were this beautiful five family, and that was the real beginning of me being able to see in advance. But it's a beautiful blessing. We had this wonderful five family, is what we called it, and then 4.5 years later, I had a dream of my father and another best friend dying. And I remember waking up and calling my friend again saying, "Hey, two people are gonna die. This was way too real." I was rummaging through their clothes, and she said, "You and your dreams, Happy." And then a couple of months later, I had a dream about an accident, and two people were in the car that had to say goodbye, and they said their goodbyes and they went away. And then I didn't even think about it because honestly, I hadn't been verified yet as a prophetic dreamer. I knew that sometimes I could see stuff in advance. And that day, I got a phone call that my daughter, my son, and my best friend were in a car accident, and my son and my best friend died. And that was the worst thing in the world. But having had seen those dreams in
Mhm.
advance was very soothing because it felt like it wasn't an accident and that everything happens for a reason, and it always happens on an energetic level first. And it also, gave me a whole lot of credibility when it came to my dreams
Yeah.
because now I can time the dreams and know how long it takes from the first death dream to when someone is, you know, when somebody is the accident or something happens. I have dreamt every single death of every single person in my family. and also births and good news and even fun events that are happening. So it's not all doom and gloom, but people are always more interested in about the death dreams.
Yeah.
Then and then that night I went to sleep because I want to know where my son was. And then I started communicating with him in my dreams, and he told me my daughter was going to be okay. And then he also told me I was going to have more kids, which was not on my agenda because I was a student and poor and didn't have any way to make a baby. And he showed me how everything was shown to me in my dreams. And now I have 7.5-year-old twins. So,
Wow.
so my entire life trajectory was changed by my inner messaging or messages. So that's why I'm really keen on teaching people to follow their soul's purpose, because I think there is an inner messenger that's always giving you helpful guidance to put you back on your path.
How can we tap into the future, look into the future using these abilities based on what you've said?
Yeah, well, I for sure wouldn't think that I would be talking about this, but if you talk to my 7.5-year-old sons, they always say, "Oh, Daddy can see the future." Because when you are in this world of 3D, you're confined to space and time. But
Mhm.
when you sleep, I mean, when you dream at first, you're just kind of processing what happened all week and putting things in the right files and everything. And there's also a version of your dreams that's just showing you how you're doing emotionally and energetically. But once you go past that, you enter new dimensions of reality where time and space don't exist. And you have access to seeing worlds that are not necessarily attached to these physical laws. And there is a dimension in the dream world where the future and the past are it's like traveling through space for us would be traveling through time. And I think that for someone like me and many others, because I've met so many people who have honed their skill since knowing me, you can get previews of the energetic world before it has come to full fruition. And you can get previews early on to where you can actually change something. If you catch it early enough, you can
Mhm.
make a difference so the outcome isn't so for sure. You can get future insight into if you make this decision, this can happen. You can also get insight into things that have matured so much energetically that there is no point, there's no point of return. Like this is it. So I think that things happen energetically first as a thought, as an idea, then they mature into different percentages, let's say, and you can tap into those future realities and different percentages and their maturity. And some is early on, it's early on in its maturity that you can change. And some, like my prophetic dreaming, where it's already too mature and it's like the momentum's built so much, or if it's so set in stone and it's so part of the soul's path that there is no changing, like a death, for example. So I think you just tap into a dimension that doesn't, have time as part of its laws. Does that
Some
answer your question?
yeah, some dreams are sort of symbolic, and then they're telling you a little bit about yourself, and some are more prophetic. How do you differentiate the two?
It's funny when you start journaling and writing down your dreams, and this is the key thing. First of all, some people say they don't remember their dreams at all. And I have a pair of twins. One remembers their dreams and one did not remember his dreams.
Mhm.
And I had to make dreams important enough in his life because his brother and I kept seeing dreams. And he got so jealous that a part of him opened up the desire to remember his dreams. And now he remembers his dreams after years of never remembering anything.
Yeah.
First, you have to remember the dreams. Then you have to, if you journal them and you write down the feeling of each dream, as well as the event, gradually you'll notice how something feels when it feels and when it becomes prophetic. And you automatically know they tend to be so detailed that you can't really forget them the same way that you would forget a regular dream. but it's really I got to tell you, it took a while. It took a long time for me to master it. And because there is so much fluff, there's so much symbol. Because even in the prophetic dreams, there is symbology.
Right.
Example, I have a avatar that I call my death avatar. It's my old boss. Her name was Flora from the 90s. And there was a point where I realized that every time I dreamt of her, 2 months later, somebody would die.
Wow.
And all I have to do is call someone and say I had a Flora dream, and someone would be like, "Uh-oh." And it doesn't matter what the context is, what the feeling is. I just had one 2 days ago, which usually it's more descriptive and it gives you at least the gender or what's happening. But this last dream was so abstract. So I'm hoping it means it's someone far away from me. But
Yeah.
generally, dreams, because they're previews of your life, they tend to, people are like, don't dream about me. I'm like, don't worry, we're not that close. If I don't grieve you, I'm not going to dream your death or
Uh,
your life or your birth. So I really encourage people to write down their dreams, color coded based on the feeling, and write down their events if you're interested in becoming a prophetic dreamer, and then try to correlate the dreams. And once you start correlating, once the moment you identify as a prophetic dreamer or you identify as one who has had one or two, your subconscious will start bringing you more events like that. Any intuitive ability, once you acknowledge it once or twice, and your belief system also now, or your identity includes that as part of its description, then
mhm.
those intuitive abilities start to come online. And I'm sure you understand that as an
Yeah.
NLP practitioner.
Right. You make an interesting correlation between the emergence of AI and intuition in the book.
Oh
Can you
my
talk a
God.
little bit more about that?
Yeah, have you heard of the term as above, so below?
Of course.
So it's a very common term in the spiritual world. It just means that whatever happens in the physical world also has a counterpart in the non-physical world.
Yeah.
And I find it, especially with the people that I'm working with, they seem to have ready, not more access, easier access to their intuitive world. And to me, the intuitive world is a supercomputer that knows the future, the past, and all this other stuff. And if you tap into it, you're tapping into a well of wisdom that has just such vast array of information. And I find it very interesting that at this time, as people are being able to tap into that world easier, we also have this supercomputer that has become more accessible, like AI, that now we can just type in anything, and all of a sudden we have all this information that comes from all this knowledge that's been accumulated. And as you know, the subconscious is basically the storage uh, space of all data that has come into your awareness since the day you were born. So just tapping into your subconscious and learning the language is the equivalent of AI, but in the subconscious world. But the thing about tapping into within is that it goes way beyond the subconscious. It goes into this huge world. So I think just knowing that we have access to AI now the way that we do also is pretty much proof that we have easier access to intuitive data as well.
I'm reminded of my interview with Kim Chesney. That when we're accessing the intuition, it's sort of a field of quantum intelligence that we're accessing. Um, would you define it as supernatural, or is it what is this field that we're connecting to?
Well, I want to say nothing is supernatural. It's just supernatural to us as humans because
True.
we can't defy it. I think it's more natural than anything. So to me, it's super natural. That means it's very natural. But
Right.
to the layman, I guess it is the supernatural world because first of all, when you tap into the quantum field, you're tapping into a world of possibilities. That's one thing of reality that hasn't happened. You also tapping into different versions of existence and reality. And because they're not in the physical world, yes, there are supernatural. Because when I tap into information that comes from my dead son, and he's telling me I'm gonna have a baby, or he shows me stuff, or he answers questions, and I'm communing with the dead, basically.
Hmm.
That's supernatural. I mean, that's what considered supernatural. But I like on my book cover, this is what my publishers thought would be the best way to best picture to describe the book.
Yeah.
I talk about reality, and I talk about this book, this tree, and the root is what people know as God. The trunk is how God is intending on creating physical reality, and the branches are basically the different points of consciousness as they split and have their own agenda. And the smaller, like for example, angels, archangels, collectives, different beings. And then the smaller branches are the soul families and the souls. And the leaves are because they are temporary in nature, and they are, they're very mortal. They come and they die is the physical reality. Now, this leaf on this side could be you. The other one over here could be someone with an opposing idea or a political party. And this one over here could be someone in another star system. It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. It all comes from the same tree. So when we're singular leaves trying to understand only our own perspective by seeing the world as a leaf, that's what we call natural. That's what humans call, oh, this is the natural world. But if you go within, you have access to information that's from all of this tree, including multi-dimensional worlds that include the branches or people from another star system that are the trees, the leaves on the other side. But when you go within, there's nothing supernatural about it. It's just the natural state because we're all connected by the same stuff.
Right.
And yes, it's absolutely supernatural. But if you really look at it from that perspective, it's absolutely natural. And what better way to understand the perspective of every single leaf and every part of the tree than to go within? Because once you go within, then the world is yours to have. Any frequency you can vibrate on, you can have access to its knowledge. So, does that answer that?
Absolutely. One of the things that when we talk about intuition, the concept of spirit guides and angels comes up, and you talk about that in the book. And I'd like to get your perspective on what are spirit guides and angels, and how are we accessing them? Is this just a form of our own personality creating an other within so that we can communicate with it or get information, or are they real entities that we're communicating with? Because I've met people that they would say that they don't have very little intuition, but they have these spirit guides that have guided them all along the way, and they really trust their guides, right?
Well, I think as human beings, we like to make sense of stuff and give it names
Yeah.
and also when you create a point of reference and you call somebody your guide, it's easier to tune into that intelligence and frequency. So, yes, there are different forces and different frequencies of information that you have access to, and they all serve a very strong purpose. But different people call it different stuff. Somebody calls it a spirit guide, and someone calls it something completely different, a guardian angel, for example. And to them, it might mean exactly the same thing or something completely different. But the moment they say, give your spirit guide a name, for example, because, in the non-physical, they don't really have the same kind of names as we do. But the moment you have a name for them, tuning into their frequency becomes much easier. The one thing that I want to stress is that regardless of what energy you're tapping into, if you're going in the world, your inner world, with a positive intent and with a request, doesn't matter where it comes from, it's your helper. Your inner world has an agenda, just like every person that you meet, and its agenda is to help you along your path. There's a lot of resources invested in creating your personality, and keeping you alive. So
Mhm.
just imagine all those resources are invested in your success. So your level of access depends on your level of frequency of what you have access to. So basically, think of cable television. It
Mhm.
has so many channels, right?
Right.
But if you don't have a remote, you can just put it on, it's on one channel and you don't have access to it. You have one of those new TVs that you can't even change a channel on. You have one frequency, and that's generally what we do. That's our soul's frequency when we're born. We're tuned into one frequency. But if you have a remote, if you learn how to work a remote, and you've seen older people who can't work a remote or can't use a smartphone to work their remote, you're trapped within that frequency. But what I teach and what I tell people is that no, that television channel of TV or that cable, whatever box that you have, if you have a box, there's no such thing anymore. I don't know if there is, has access to thousands of channels, and they all have different levels of information. And all you have to do is learn to change the channel when you want different information. If you want to cook something, you got to find the cooking channel. And you're not going to do it if you're stuck on your basic channels because there's no real cooking channel on basic TV. So it's just a matter, and then people want to call it the Food Network. Yes, there's the Food Network, there's the cooking, whatever. There's so many different versions. Or if you want sports, there's so many different versions of it. And it is good to identify it with a name, but don't be so attached to other people's version of the name because there's always helper, non-physical beings, whether they're your dead relatives, your spirit guides that are assigned to you at this time with the specialty that they have that would help you through this path. Or it could be angelic beings that just want to help you, and their job is to help humanity. But you just have to tune into that frequency and staying in misery and staying in the state of feeling alone and that there's no one else to help me keeps you in this very low frequency. And only trying to seek information from the outside world completely shuts you off from your inner world. So it doesn't matter what you're tapping and who is trying to help you. It doesn't matter who's trying to help you. You have no access to it anyway. But the universe is clever. It still finds ways to show you things through patterns and things that keep showing up in your life because it's relentless. The world wants you to succeed. If you keep making the same mistake, it'll show you a disease in your body saying, "Hey, wake up."
Mhm.
And if you don't wake up, you die eventually, so you can reset. But I'm not a big, I wrote descriptions of each thing in my book, each being that you have access to. But I
Right.
always say, is it helping you? Maybe you're just tapping to your subconscious. And if it's helpful, it's helpful. Who gives a crap?
Right. Has your intuition been wrong and has that instructed you on how to use your intuition?
You know what? My intuition usually is right, but my interpretation can be very wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
Because if you have an agenda, or if you have any kind of obsession over someone or something, your intuition will tell you, especially if you've mastered it, it'll say, this is not the right person for you. And you will misinterpret that information so beautifully, so beautifully. For example, I just had my Flora dream from 2 days ago. And I called my best friend, said I had a Flora dream. And both of us were like, maybe this time this is going to be Flora giving us good news. Bet you anything it's not going to be her giving me good news. But we spent the entire conversation talking about how we're going to change her and make her the giver of good news. But I will guarantee you in 2 months someone's going to die. She also told my best friends like, if someone doesn't die, you're going to be so sad because you would have broken your streak. And we just laughed about it because it's true. And I don't want anyone to die, but I also don't want to break my streak. Uh, a 20-year streak. But yeah, intuition is generally right. So here's the thing. Let me just clarify something.
Mhm.
Your inner voice can lead you to bad things.
Right.
So you have your inner voice that's more survival, coming from the survival aspect of you. That's more your instincts kicking in, keep you safe. And sometimes they're based on fear. A lot of times they're based on fear and they're based on a no risk life. So you're in survival mode. And that's why your five senses are so loud to keep you alive. So some people consider that instinct their intuition. I don't think of that as intuition. I think of that as your instincts and keeping you safe. I think intuition itself is higher frequency and it's there to help you and guide you to thrive, not just survive. So it's really good to understand whether you're re- reacting to something, because reacting internally feels like intuition, but it's instinct,
Yeah.
or
Well,
whether you're receiving insight that's actually
right.
helping you guide you towards something. And sometimes, this is a crappy part, sometimes there's a lesson that you need to learn because you need to upgrade. We come to this world to transform and be better people. And sometimes there's a lesson that you have to learn. There's an upgrade that you need to make. And your intuition will guide you directly to that horrible lesson.
This is
And
true.
you might think that, oh, my intuition led me to this horrible thing. But in hindsight, because hindsight always is always 2020, you'll be like, wow, I needed that lesson really, really bad because I was kind of lost at that moment. And nothing short of that pitfall would have taken me to this high place. I mean, I guess if you think about the death of my son or the birth of my son, if you think about the dream that I had that allowed me to have a son,
Hmm.
you would say that my intuition and my inner voice led me to grief,
Yeah.
right? Because it led me to the best moment of my life and the worst moment of my life. Then it also led me to where I am right now,
Right.
where I'm teaching hundreds of people or thousands of people, depending on how many people are tuning in at each moment. And I have more credibility. I have more understanding of the world. I have more compassion. I have more real life experience. And when I say I teach happiness, I am somebody who's been through hell and back. So I have more validity, more I have more credibility as a teacher.
Hmm.
So my intuition led me on this path, which I'm very thankful for. I wish I never lost my son, but I don't think I would take any of it back.
Yeah. I can't imagine. The the thought that comes to mind is the classic stereotype of the jealous partner, that they see something and, oh no, they're cheating on me, and that's not their intuition telling them. That's some trauma that they had from a previous experience where they were cheated on, or they're worried, or they're imagining some terrible thing happening in the relationship, and they think that their intuition is telling them, oh, my partner is cheating on me, but it's not the intuition. It's something else, right?
It's absolutely their old programming, and because they are living in an insecure world. When you're feeling insecure in general, you're gonna attract a cheating person into your life regardless. I want to give an example. I was married for 4 years, and my husband was dead set on the idea that I was cheating on him, and he was jealous as almighty hell.
And he was assuming it was intuition telling him, right?
I'm
A
guessing it
little
was
bit,
that.
right?
Yeah, yeah. He was like, I am never wrong about this stuff. This is never happens. I'm always
Right.
accurate. I know you're cheating. Guess what? He didn't know me, and he didn't know that I wasn't a cheater, right? So eventually, what happened in my life is I got pulled out of his life because I left him because I couldn't stand it anymore. Couldn't stand being accused of doing something I didn't. And he immediately met someone who cheated on him.
Right.
So
Classic.
So it was so you his intuition was right, I guess, in a sense that he was going to get cheated on, but he was wrong that it was going to be me. But I think it was based out of his fear, and because we are master manifestors of our reality, um, our vibration was so different that he was wrong. He was wrong about me for sure. But his worries were definitely out of his fear-based instincts kicking in and just making sure that he was not going to get cheated on. But unfortunately, he did create a reality. But then again, I know somebody else who their boyfriend started doing stuff behind their back, and that intuition kicked in right away, and it turned them into a psycho. So
Right.
it's really the thing is, this is why my book is as many pages as it is, because I really go into every scenario in detail because I feel like it's such a hard thing. You have to know if you have an agenda, if you have any traumas, if you have any past patterns, you got to know everything. You got to filter that stuff out. But my favorite use for intuition, honestly, is not this like woo-woo stuff. It's for everyday guidance. When you're going through the day, should I make this turn? Should I call this person? Should I pick up this phone? Or should I sign this check? Or should I take a nap? Or, something like that. Or those are the times where intuition really kicks in. The other stuff's for fun, okay? Prophetic dreaming is for fun. Death dreams are good for preparing you for something bad happening. It's fun to know if your friend is having a baby way before they are. I don't see anything more than fun happening. But
Hmm.
when it comes to every single day decision making, I think that's where the magic is, where the gold is. When you can have an extra person or extra being, extra source of intelligence that's infinite accompany you every single day of your life to add to the noise that's out there, because everyone and their mother wants to tell you what to do. And when you can hone in on a source of information that can add to the options that you have when you make decisions, I think that's where the gold is. I think that's where the real value is. So I think, at that time, that's when you want to check in and say, hey, now that I've cleared my worries and fears, does my boyfriend love me? Is he cheating on me? And that's when, if you've learned how to master the feelings or the knowings or your superpower in terms of intuitive information, you can actually get the answer. And it won't show up because fear shows up in the belly and the lower part, and worry and anxiety. And if you learn techniques that are not involving the here of this part of the body, or you learn how to clear that out, and you ask, is my boyfriend cheating on me or should I trust him? You'll get an answer. You'll just get it from a different source that's not so colored by the emotions. So you can ask that question, or should I be with this person? Generally, when people are in a relationship and they're not in a good one, or even in a good one, they can ask immediately and say, am I in the right relationship? And their instincts will tell them, or their intuition will tell them right away. And then their fears kick in. I don't want to be single. I love this person. I've invested 2 years of my life. All this stuff happens. But generally, everybody knows. You just have to give it airtime and
It's
use
true.
it as a reliable source of information.
You have some great exercises, and it kind of relates to the yes or no exercise. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How we can use this? How do
Well,
we
this is
use
my
this?
favorite. This is
Yeah.
my favorite one. I'll explain. And I do want to give you a disclaimer. I have twin boys. One of them can't do it because he's too logical, and he has everything to make sense. And then one
Hmm.
of them is very emotional, goes with the emotions, and is and more of an empath. And he gets the answers right away. I take them to my workshops, and I have them do the exercises, and then they do it in front of people. So one can do one exercise really well, and the other one can't do it.
Right.
But the majority of the people in my workshops can do it. So if you can do it, that's awesome. So what I do is I tell people, learn the language of your subconscious telling you when something is a yes and when something is a no. I say, close your eyes, because when you close your eyes, you close basically, you turn off the loudest of your five senses, and your brain waves slow down a little bit, and you can become more in tune with your body. Then
Hmm.
I say, scan your body from your chest to your pelvis. You can scan the whole body because some people it's different, and
Hmm.
ask a question that you know for sure to be a yes. Like, am I on planet Earth right now, or is it daytime right now? And when you ask the question, scan the body for any sensations, any tightening, tingling, any relaxation, anything you scan. And then you ask another yes question that you know the answer to. Then you ask another yes question, usually 3 or 4 times. Then you kind of open your eyes and shake it out, and then close your eyes again and ask no questions, and then see where the sensations are different. Mine are very clear. I know where there's a yes, I know where there's a no. And then ask a question. Say, should I be worried about this? Is everything going to be okay? Am I in a good place? Am I making the right choice right now? Are the decisions I'm making in alignment with my soul's purpose? And you'll get a clear yes or no answer. If you're one of those people that can't do it, grab a pendulum. A pendulum is always really fun because you can use your subconscious. The subconscious manipulates the micro muscles in the tip of your fingers.
Mhm.
So as long as you promise not to move your hand and you're not cheating, you take a pendulum, which is like a big long necklace or something, and you hold it and you ask it to show a yes and you ask it to show a no. And as long as you're not cheating, you ask a question. The question is, but the big thing is you can't cheat and you can't have an agenda. If you have an agenda, it won't move. I mean, it'll move in the direction you want it to. It'll give you whatever you want to hear, you know?
Well, the thing
So,
that's worked for me is the is muscle testing or the lean. Like, I'll stand and
or
ask, and I'll lean forward for yes, or I'll test it to see what it is. I'll find myself naturally leaning back, just getting a physical response, right?
that's the best for people who can't get the emotion. But if you master the gut feeling thing, it's
Yeah,
so good because you could be driving a car and you'll get that. You don't have to
right,
go forward and back. But it's really, really, really important to know that even with muscle testing, first you're tapping into the subconscious. But once you learn into tapping into new frequencies that are higher frequencies, more angelic frequencies, higher self frequencies, for your whatever, your spirit guide frequencies, you can use the same technique, but as long as you're tuned into the new frequency, you will get answers that are much wiser than just what comes from your subconscious and its database.
right.
And and the key is to learn to tune into new frequency if you want to go above that. If not, just tapping into your subconscious is really good. The subconscious knows if you have disease in your body, if you need any certain nutrients, if you're missing someone's body language, communication. There's so much information. As you know, 99.99% of data doesn't come to our awareness, just gets stored into our subconscious. But I love every exercise. Do them all.
Right.
Have fun with them.
Fail, and there's the fear can overwhelm the intelligence of the intuition, right?
Always, always. There's an entire chapter on misinterpretation. And am I to invest it? Am I fearful of something? Do I have indigestion? Am I having any kind of detoxification going on in my body? There's a lot. Do I have too much invested? Those are the times where you kind of want to ask the universe for signs. Sometimes you just have to let it go because just like the cells in your body are a part of your body, the universe at large or this galaxy is a larger version of your body and you're a cell in that. And if you know that you're connected to that and you know that you're just blind, you ask the universe for something and you say, hey, if and it's true. If you're with someone and all of a sudden all the doors seem to be locked or closed and all bad opportunities keep coming up, things are not working out. That's the universe telling you you're on the wrong path.
Hmm.
And you need to make a decision because when you're on your soul's journey or you're with the right person, doors open, things get better, things work out. And a really wonderful way to bypass any emotion or thought that has to come from within you is you say, you know what? I am too lost in this situation right now. Show me in other ways that are undeniably clear because I call it the outer intuition. First, there's the body as your intuition. It's your part of your intuition, your physical body. And there's the outer world as your external intuition, which is outer intuition. And I sometimes have to rely on that. Sometimes I'm so lost. I remember when I was having my children and I was a single dad with twin boys, overwhelmed. I had no access to anything other than survival mode.
Hmm.
And I was dating someone, and everything in me was telling me, "Hey, this is the wrong decision," you know? But I just needed companion at the time, and I didn't care. And the universe kept showing me things, showing me, showing me, showing me, showing me, and I kept saying, "No, I can't acknowledge." I would purposely not look at it because I needed companionship more than anything else, but I would deny it. But the universe will show you, even when you're completely shut off. But let me tell you something. If you got a friend who's extremely wise, who's lived a lot longer than you, and they have the best advice to give you. If you have an agenda, if you have a desire to be with someone and they tell you, I see 1,000 red flags, are you going to listen?
You'll still ignore everything they say.
Yeah. So it's intuition isn't, I'm going to tap into my intuition. Now my life's going to be perfect.
Right.
Intuition's, I'm going to have a wise new friend who will give me good advice and I will not listen to it half the time. But at least I'll know that I have my friend because, it's so nice to know that you have that friend that's
Yeah.
wise and you can call them. But how many times have you not called someone because you knew they were going to give you advice that you didn't want to hear?
It's true.
You
Yeah,
know?
you mentioned signs and symbols, and what the problem I have when I look for is that my guides or the universe is just tries to be too clever with me. I have to be Sherlock Holmes, and it's so like sometimes it's like, way like really, you could have just made it so much simpler. Like, how do you read the signs and symbols? Is there an easy way to do that?
Well, first of all, as you already study NLP, you know about the reticular activating system, which is
Right,
already like it spots things that have meaning for you. So
right.
that ruined sign for me
It
right
does.
away because I would get all these numbers, like angel numbers and everything, like 111s or 555s, because my dead a best friend, her number was 555 and my son's number was 43. And of course, we would see it everywhere because the reticular activating system, for people who don't know, is the part of you that is part of the attenuation system of your brain, where if there's too much data, it has to whittle it down to the stuff that matters to you, and it only brings things to your attention and awareness that only means something to you. So if there's a ton of license plates on the street, it's going to find the ones that mean something to you and take your awareness to it because it's tapped into your peripheral vision at all times. So it sees everything. So that ruined science for me for a
Hmm.
while. So I had to speak to the universe and say, give me stuff that's so clear that I cannot miss it. So demanding something from the universe gives you stuff, not begging. Begging gives you nothing. Demanding, say, I want to know something. You got to show it to me in a way that I cannot fight it. For example, the 1143 is my son and the 555. I was having a moment. It was the day I figured out about the RAS. And I
Hmm.
said, give me a sign. I need something now. And then I live at 1343, whatever street I live on, right? Not 1143. And that day, I got a box sent to my house that was mistakenly sent from 1143 to 1143, which is my son's number, but the
Hmm.
return address was 555 Rainbow Street. So that box had 555 and 1143 on it. So that couldn't have been my RAS. I couldn't have made that up. So for you, you're Sherlock Holmes, you need proof, probably, right? Right? Is that what it is? Is that what you meant when you said you're Sherlock Holmes? Do you need more proof?
It's just not obvious. And if I look into the deep context of the symbol, then oh,
No,
that's what I meant. I mean, that's what it meant. But
but then,
um,
then then it's not how it communicates with you.
right, yeah. But
It's it,
the
it
reticular activating is not connected to the intuition, and that's the tough thing is that when it's really active, you're seeing what you're looking for, but
you
it's
only
not
see
connected to the intuition, right?
not at all, not at all. So you need to figure out what your path of least resistance is. The more logical you are, the harder intuition is. The logical mind is the intuitive mind's worst enemy
Hmm.
because logic needs proof, intuition needs you to trust. So you have to go into this as a game. Don't go trying to figure out the lotto numbers or something that means a lot when you're training your intuitive abilities. You have to go into something that means nothing to you, just like you talked about the remote viewers.
Hmm.
If you are just honing or fine tuning a skill, go learn how to play a simple thing. Like, for example, if you're trying to learn a piano, you don't want to learn a symphony or something really complicated. You want to learn how to play, ABC or Do Re Mi or whatever it is, depending on how you were taught the notes. You just want to learn how to use your fingers with no repercussion as to whether you're making a mistake or not. So I say start guessing the cost of your groceries and add 100 now, I guess. Um, but start with something small. The entire book talks about how if you put too much stakes on it, you're going to get it wrong in the beginning. The point is to start playing, having fun, doing stuff that have no repercussion until you feel like you've grown a muscle. And then you've grown a muscle, then you improve upon it. Unf Unfortunately, intuition is not ne ever going to be as loud as your five senses because your five senses are there to make sure that you are surviving. And this book was not written for someone to survive. It was meant for somebody who has now got life, the basics down and just wants to make their life better. They want to tap into something greater. They want to go to the next level and they want to talk to other versions of reality that they don't have access to. And that's more of a fun and playful kind of thing.
Hmm.
If your life is really good and you're doing everything well, don't buy this damn book. Throw it in the garbage. Use it as fire. If someone gives it to you, use it as firewood. You don't need it. This is only for people who have the curiosity of more and who want to learn about dimensions or ideas or things or become inventors and have ideas come to them. I mean, I wrote a book based on intuition using my intuition because
Right.
that's where I wanted to go. My first book came to me in like 5 minutes. And it was a full book. And I thought, I don't have a book in me, but I was really desperately wanting to be an author. And my next book, that's not out yet, just came to me in like 2 seconds.
Hmm.
And it's really fun when you do that. But you kind of have to activate the fun part, the fun aspect of life, and then watch new stuff show up. Like, for example, when I started creating the Heart Lens, the other book, I wasn't so, I wasn't even sold on the topic, but I was using that part of my brain and I was using those muscles. And all of a sudden, one day, that came and I trusted it because I recognized the strength of it. And I decided to jump ship. I don't even know where that book is right now. I think it's lost.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it was on someone else's server and I haven't been able to
Oh, man.
access it.
That's
I
the
don't
word.
care. I don't care
Yeah.
because if that book was supposed to come out, it would have come out.
Yeah.
And when it's time for my next book to come out, it'll come out. The point is when you get this, when you learn how to interpret your inner voice and you get a surge of information, you get a download, drop everything
Yeah.
because you're not the only one that got that message. Information gets dropped into the atmosphere. People that are tuned in receive it, and the first person to act on it's the one who's going to get the credit for it.
You ever thought about using your abilities, like go to Vegas and just bet on some different teams, just trust your intuition and see how you did?
Well, here's the thing. When I go to Vegas, I already know if it's going to be a winning day or a non-winning day.
Right.
But second, if I'm, let's say, having a month where I have a lot of expenses and betting, $1,000 or $100 on something feels too big to lose, even if I have a winning feeling, I won't do it
Right.
because the stakes are high. So what I'll do is I'll play on the penny machines where now it's like minimum you can play it's like 50 cents or something. And I will go to a slot machine, for example, because I like to play. I don't care about winning because I think the fun is in the playing. So I'll go there and I'll look at it and I'll check in with my gut and I'll sit in front of it if it and as soon as I sit and I do like one or two, something will tell me to get up and go or stay. And I always come up winning. And last time it was really weird because I was just there. And I got this feeling to go to these machines and it was just winning and winning and winning and winning and winning. And all of a sudden, one day I was on this high. I was like, this is great. I'm just a winner. And I was like, I'm gonna go back. Everything in me said, don't go.
Right.
So I go there and I lose everything except the last like $5. And I leave and I said, you know what? My intuition said I was going to win this time. I'm going to go home until I get the cue to come back. So I went back into the hotel, didn't play for a couple of days. And then all of a sudden, there was something in me that said, now's the time. So I went there with my $5, won everything back in the same exact machine, and came up again. And then it was like, yeah, and I won. But it was one of those things where when I was feeling that addictive high, that thing took over. But I don't really, honestly, like, I think right now, because I have two children to pay for college, the stakes are high. I'd rather, save money for them than to spend $1,000 on a game. And I
Yeah.
don't think that my intuition would allow me to, I think the desire or the fear would override everything. So I'm not gonna risk it. I'm not that person because I think
Yeah.
risking, but I don't think, I think winning the lottery of life by knowing what to do in each moment is way more fun than like winning $1 million. I mean, I say that, but still, because everything comes with issues. When you have mastered the art of life, it's almost like you've won $1 billion because everything just works out.
So true.
So I just had an interview with someone who won the lotto and we were just talking about it. It said when you win the lotto of life, because you've mastered manifestation, you've mastered intuition, because intuition is very much tied into manifestation.
It is 100%.
Manifestation is you create something and then you have to know when to act. And when to act is when you tap into your intuition.
It's a major part of the process of reality creation. Once you've imagined and you feel it's real, you just have to follow your intuition. And sometimes that's where people get stuck, is that they just don't follow those signals that are taking them right where they need to go. Yeah.
To have a successful life, you have to have access to your intuition. I don't think there's a single successful person who hasn't mastered the art of listening to their inner guidance system because they all had to act at one moment unless they were handed everything.
Yeah.
And I always say, the people that piss you off that are so successful, and they're even people who get away with horrible things, they've learned how to listen to their intuition. They are master manifestors.
Yeah.
So see what they're doing right and don't judge what they're doing wrong, even though you don't want to condemn people. Or you do want to condemn someone that's doing good stuff, but they are doing something right. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in that position.
Yeah.
And they follow their gut and they trust in themselves and they trust that everything always works out. So I think that's like the biggest lesson to even learn from someone who's doing something bad.
Very true. Happy Ali, the Intuition Bible. You can find a link for the Intuition Bible in the description and in the comments. And where you're on all the social medias as well. So what are the best places that we can find you?
Happy Insights Official is my Instagram, but which if you go there, my link tree is on there. And if you click on the link tree, everything that I do is on there. But my website's happyinsights.net. And that's where my courses are. And I am going to be starting a group coaching course for intuition because it's really fun to do it in a group. And,
Fantastic.
and I'll be doing that. And my favorite thing that I do is my hypnotherapy sessions. I do this thing where you come in with 4 or 5 questions. I take you as deep as you're willing to let me go, let yourself go. And then I ask you those questions and you answer from a higher perspective, which is like it could be your higher self, it could be your subconscious, it could be what. And then you get your own answers and you get to see what you would be living if you take your own advice. So
I
that's really
love
fun
that.
too. Yeah.
Very cool.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully we can talk again. Please let me know when your next book comes out.
Thank you.
And I have an intuition that this episode's going to do pretty well because it was a very interesting conversation. So
Thank you so
welcome to the
much.
Reality Revolution, Happy.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
We return you now to your local announcer.